Hey, there we go. We got it. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it might be where you are out there. Welcome back to the live stream. My name is Jeff Fritz, and today is July 19th. Of course, it's July 19th, 2021. And this is C# with CSharpFritz. How you doing over there, friends? We're broadcasting live to Learn TV, the Visual Studio channel on Twitch, and youtube.com/.net. How's it going out there? How you doing? I've got my Xamarin University hat on. Those of you that don't know, I've got a thing for hats. I've got a little bit of a thing for hats. And this is a throwback hat that I got from the Microsoft Build 2018 conference. Our friends from Xamarin University at the time had these hats made with all the places you can use C#. Check it out. So in the cloud, in Visual Studio, in markup, and of course for mobile apps. Really great stuff. And today we're going to get into a topic that I don't proclaim to be an expert on. Quite frankly, I spent a bit of time last week brushing up because I don't really use this technology. This isn't one that I use because I'm a web developer. I've always been a web developer first, so I had to dive back in and relearn a bit of WPF, Windows Presentation Foundation. We're going to get into today. We're going to cover just a beginning smattering of topics. We're not going to go deep on anything, but we're going to talk about why you would choose WPF, what XAML is and how you can use XAML. And we're going to get into a couple of demo apps here and build something very simple, a couple of something simples at the command line with Visual Studio and with Visual Studio Code. There are no limits to your WPF applications. We're going to see more about that today. Let me say hello to the folks that are in the chat room. I've got folks right here in the Twitch chat room. I see folks over there in the YouTube chat room as well. Hello to everybody. Let me start over here on Twitch. Charles Galuli's here. Chris Jones, another day, another channel, another Fritz. I was broadcasting yesterday over on my channel here on Twitch. Good afternoon to you, Shy Sharp Squirrelies. Greetings to you, Govnoidovich. Moscow is here. Good to see you. Justin Horner, Robert Dino, howdy, howdy. Nitro Evil, good afternoon to you. You've always wanted to learn about WPF, but never had the time. Excited to learn about it today. We'll see how far we go. I hope I wet your whistles and give you appropriate locations and documentations where you can go and learn more. Let me check in with folks over here on YouTube. Good morning. I see a bunch of folks from South Africa. John Moeller, Robert Mrobo. Good to see you. Robert in Centerton, New Jersey. Good to see you. G Return in the Philippines. Evan in Huntsville, Alabama. My goodness, it's a little bit warm here in the Philadelphia region. I'm sure it's a little bit warm in the Philippines and Huntsville today. Certainly centered in New Jersey. Robert, yeah, it's a little bit humid in this part of the world right now. Hoi Nguyen, good to see you. Good evening. Gabriel, nice cap. Thank you so much. Samir Moon from India. Hello, hello. Israel from Argentina. Good to see you. Olaitan in Nigeria. Soji in Nigeria, Mohammed in South Africa as well, Mott from Jordan, Ganesh from India, let me see, Swami Sivakumar, Yalamadi in India, hello, hello, Mladen in Croatia, Alien 1900 from Mother Russia, okay, Amir from Pakistan, Oliver from Sweden, good, Olivier, I guess it is, from Sweden, Hoi from Vietnam, Morteza from Iran. That's fantastic. We've got Iranian folks watching my stream all the time. Great to see you. VJ from India. Hello, hello. Felix dialing in from Kenya. Great to see folks from all over the world dialed in. Please, doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter what gender you are. It doesn't matter your skill level. Everybody's welcome here. No bullying is allowed. We will moderate those folks right out of here. Please, the AMA, if you're watching on Twitch, the AMA tag is on. That's Ask Me Anything. Any question about C#, about .NET, about WPF, we're happy to answer here. This is your chance to have a discussion. This isn't watching Fritz give a presentation. You're going to be able to watch the recording later and rewind and fast forward. Let's get your questions answered about cool things that we can do with our .NET technologies. And that's why I'm here. Absolutely, Justin. Everyone is welcome here. There is and there is no bullying allowed. There is no prejudice here. We want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to learn, and we're going to continue moving forward and learning other topics. Next week, we're going to get into some advanced C# topics before we kind of reset the cycle here. And in August, we're going to go back and start learning the basics of C# again. Folks that may have missed the first, I think it was 12 episodes or so, we're going to reset. Go back to the beginning, dial in C# 9, talk a little bit about what's coming in C# 10. We've got a series of Jupyter notebooks out there for you that we're going to tune, we're going to improve, and we're going to go through starting in August. So it's going to be August, September, leading into October. We're going to spend some time talking about ASP.NET in late October and November. December, we're going to talk about .NET MAUI and building mobile apps live here on the channel. Using .NET technology, you're going to get that native mobile application experience, whether you're a desktop developer, whether you're a web developer using Blazor. We're going to have a great time with that in December. And we get into January and the whole cycle starts again, and that's more than 5 months ahead, and I can't think that far. So we'll see where that goes. Stonehenge, good morning to you. Corgan TV, where can you buy the cap? They don't make this anymore. They gave it away at Microsoft Build 3 years ago. So a lot of the hats that you see me wear on stream, swag giveaways from various events, one time made, and you can't find it anymore. And that's why I like to break out the hat collection and go through things. You can find more of the hats in my collection, not the entire collection, at hats.csharpfritz.com. It's a little Blazor website that's hosted on Azure. It has more than 50 hats that are in the collection that you can scroll through and see there. There's almost 200 in the collection now. It's a lot. Not gonna lie, it's a lot. And some of them are hanging up over here in the room. I've got some on a shelf over here, and I've got a few sitting on the chair next to me just because I've been wearing them recently. I do like my hats, Banana. Absolutely. So a couple more folks checking in over here on YouTube. Good to see you. From Korea, from Germany, Argentina, Nico from Argentina, Bora from Brazil. I'm going to answer that question, but I'm not going to read your name, and I'd prefer, if you can change your name, please change your name. I'm going to be tempted here to, but the first question, real easy to answer here, is it worth learning WPF as desktop applications are mostly dead? Completely disagree. Completely disagree. Desktop applications are not dead. They might not be used as much in your part of the world, but enterprises use desktop applications all the time. There are literally millions of enterprise desktop applications that have been built with Windows Forms, WPF, some other technologies like Electron Shell, that all kinds of folks are using every day. When you see folks use a cash register at the market, at whatever store, they're using some sort of an app that, if it's a desktop type of machine they're using, it's a desktop app they're using, because they need to interface, they need to interact with all kinds of sensors and external devices that you just don't get with the web. You need to be able to hook up to a credit card reader. You need to be able to hook up to a barcode reader, all these things, cameras and the like. And yes, you can do some of those over the web, but for reliability, for the best performance, for the ability to use the GPU effectively, you're going to choose a desktop framework like WPF. So some people may think desktop apps equal rich UI apps like Spotify, which uses some form of HTML. Yes, and there's nothing wrong with thinking that, because what they're doing is they're embedding a web browser inside the rest of the application. So you can use the web browser to bring in external data, and you can sandbox it so it only goes to places that you control. But once it's loaded up, you can hand off processing, you can hand off control to those native components. And when we think about Spotify, the native components like the media player, hand off to that and let the local media player run, because you're going to get better interaction. You're going to get better responsiveness with the local one instead of the web-based one, which can get a little finicky streaming and interacting. It's a little bit easier to stream and save things out there. But yes, Caparino, there are plenty of other apps, CRMs, right? Yep, ERP applications. There are lots of applications out there that folks use that are based on the desktop. Let me keep reading through here. Folks from China, Peru, Bangladesh. Ankit's dialed in from New Delhi. Mexico, Ghana. Why not WinUI 3? Different topic. Why not WinUI 3? That's coming up later this year. You don't want to build directly with WinUI 3. You're going to want to build with .NET MAUI, because which is built on top of WinUI 3 and Xamarin Forms, and you're going to be able to get to deploy your application not just to Windows, but to Mac OS, Android, and iOS. Huge advantage there for building with .NET MAUI instead of just WinUI 3. WinUI 3, the Windows folks are working on. They're going to make it great for you to build with. It's going to be a fantastic framework. But if we build with .NET MAUI just on top, then we get that flexibility that we can just take anywhere. Now we're talking. Now we're getting something that lets you as a Windows developer become a mobile developer, a Mac developer, and really stretch your arms and take .NET, take C# everywhere you want to be. I feel like I'm selling an American Express card here. How's it going there? Marcos Gustavo Perez, good to see you. Code Zappy, hello. WinUI 3 doesn't work on Windows 7. Windows 7 isn't supported anymore. Let's start there. So there's a whole nother thing. If you're trying to build applications for platforms that aren't supported by Microsoft anymore, you're going to need to go to those older frameworks that are supported on those older versions of Windows. To be clear, you can build with WPF, you can build with Windows Forms, and you can deploy to Windows 7, Windows XP, Windows Vista. You do not get security patches on those operating systems. You're on your own on those machines, but you can work with them. You can deploy to IoT devices that are running versions of Windows. You can do that. That is possible. Those are choices, but if you want full support, if you want to be able to call somebody, if you want to get security patches, you're going to need to stay on modern versions of Windows. So I believe that's Windows 8.1, Windows 10, and coming later this year, Windows 11. And Windows 8.1, I think, is rolling off here in the next year or two. I forget exactly when that rolls out of support. There's a question here from R. Lapoli. WPF or WinForms, which is better? That's like asking somebody to choose between. This is the Sophie's choice of .NET frameworks, right? .NET desktop frameworks. Which one's better? They're both great. The question is, what are you trying to do with them? Windows Forms is great with a designer, and it generates all kinds of binary content that places things exactly as you have them in the designer on the screen. WPF gives you a designer, but more importantly, it gives you the markup. So you get that same level of separation. We're going to see this in a minute when we get into this. That same level of separation between markup and code that you have with ASP.NET, that you have with your web frameworks. You have your markup, your HTML that you ship in the web, and you also have the code that activates, that decides how to render that, how to interact with that. So when you work with WPF or you work with Windows Forms, there are different sets of features. You have animations, you have brushes, you have other things that are available to you in WPF because it works very closely with the GPU on your system. Windows Forms, not so much. But if you're building Windows Forms, you're typically building forms over data. You're not building something that is intended to be very graphically intensive. So you have your choice. There's definitely options to go either way. If you are doing something that will be graphically intensive, you're going to work with a camera. You might be working with a barcode reader. You might be working with video, maybe. WPF is going to be a great option for you. If you're just working with forms over data, Windows Forms is going to be a lightweight solution that's going to be able to run anywhere, regardless of the graphics processor that you're using. No, Curious Drive. We're not going there today. No JavaScript today. All WPF that we're going to be doing today. Let me pivot, take a look over here. I see no interactions from our friends on Learn TV. Jens asks, what kind of database is commonly used on WPF? So that typically with .NET, the most favorite database that you see folks use is going to be Microsoft SQL Server. If you're going to work with WPF, you can connect directly into and use a client server type of architecture. Your WPF application, your desktop application, is a client. And you can connect right into a database that's running in your data center, that's running elsewhere on your network, that's maybe running out on Microsoft Azure, somewhere else in the cloud that you've got a VPN connection to, and you can connect and interact with that. Typically, folks use SQL Server. Folks that are building and interacting with files locally, they'll use SQLite. One of our samples that we may get to today uses a SQLite database. That's really nice if you want to package up an application that you want to deliver that's standalone and can run on anybody's machine. Great opportunities for you to choose all kinds of vendors that you may want to work with. You want to use Mongo, you want to use Oracle, you want to use Sybase, you want to use DB2. Fantastic. It'll hook up. We have drivers available that'll work with all of them, and you'll get a great experience if you're using Entity Framework Core to connect to them. You don't have to use those. You can connect and use straight database connections and make queries and interact with them. Use a micro ORM like Dapper. You can interact with those. All kinds of options for you, but what database is preferred? By and large, folks that use .NET prefer SQL Server. It'd be good if more videos about WPF were uploaded to the channel. We actually have a lot of demand for Blazor videos right now. We've got demand for .NET MAUI videos because those are the new technologies that are coming out. And I wanted to spend this month talking about desktop applications for Windows and covering some of the basics to get folks into these. Not going too deep because there isn't a lot of basic content, and folks that are getting involved with these types of applications are usually coming in some sort of a support scenario because there are so many of them out there. Folks that are building new modern applications, we want to make sure you're successful with .NET MAUI going forward. To deploy a WPF application inside of a business for, let's say, 100 users, would you use Click Once or something else? Exactly. That's over on YouTube, is that question. Click Once is a technology that you can use to package and deploy that package out to somewhere on your network so that folks can click and install that application, and you'll be able to maintain that application, push updates out to that location so folks can get those updates installed and synchronized on their desktop very easily. Yes, Click Once is where I would prefer to go. Hello to you in Vietnam. How to connect source with UI in WPF. We're going to see that in a bit. WinForms misses one of the most important features, binding, says Ganesh. Incorrect. We saw that 2 weeks ago. You can do all kinds of data binding back and forth between Windows Forms controls, data. Really great experience with Windows Forms. You don't have the binding keyword like you do with markup in WPF. So, for a Linux UI application, WPF or WinForms? Neither. It's Windows Forms. It's Windows Presentation Foundation. I'm sorry, neither one of those works on Linux. They're built for Windows. They have tight coupling to the Windows operating system. You're not going to be able to use these frameworks on Linux. You're not going to be able to use these frameworks on Mac OS. They're designed for Windows. That's where .NET MAUI comes in, being able to build and deploy and use it wherever you want to go. Good morning to you, WireJP in Barbados. Good to see you. All right. And I see some of the automated bots over there. Do we have any type of Click Once for WPF nowadays? Yes, we do. There is a new and updated Click Once that's available for .NET Core instances of WPF that you can use to install and to deploy and install your WPF applications. I'm not going to get into Click Once today. I thought there was a demo given on the .NET community stand-up about that. If not, we'll see what we can do to get a quick 5-10 minute video together to talk about Click Once here. Catching up. Is Mono able to run WinForms on Linux with GTK Sharp? I don't think so. If it is, it's outside of the Microsoft support ecosystem. Certainly there are tools like Wine on Linux that folks can use to install and run WPF or WinForms, but you've stepped very far outside of the target ecosystem. There are folks working on a runtime for .NET MAUI to run on Linux. So you will be able to run it with community support, but that's coming. We'll see more about that later. Blazor and Electron for Linux. Yes, you can do that. Yeah, you can do that. Sure, absolutely. Is it possible to migrate WPF app to WinUI without any changes on UI? No. WinUI uses a different flavor of XAML, has a different set of objects and structures, and you're not going to be able to move it without UI changes. Sorry about that. You want to learn C#, but you have concern about the job opportunity. There are millions of .NET developers out there, and there are millions of openings for .NET developers. C# is a very employable skill set for folks at enterprises, at companies. Between game development, mobile development, web development, desktop development, you can learn C# and build anything So it is a very marketable skill set. So you've been working with WPF for 10 years now. Any new tools to optimize rendering? You're going to see with .NET 6, performance for WPF is improving significantly. Also with .NET 5 and .NET 6, you can package your WPF apps as a single file executable that you're going to be able to deploy and run anywhere without having to carry a .NET framework or ensure that a version of .NET framework is installed or a .NET Core or a .NET runtime is installed. It'll just work wherever. Web ASPX, folks are still building web forms apps, absolutely, and Curious Drive is employed because of their C# skills. Lots of opportunities with WPF for folks out there. For folks with .NET. There are opportunities for folks with WPF. There's all kinds of opportunities with .NET and C#. I'm going to get some music playing here in the background. This is Stream Beats by Harris Heller, and you know what? I'm going to go to the lo-fi playlist today. There we go. This is music that's royalty-free, DMCA-free. You can listen to it wherever you'd like. Groovy instrumental music that's great to have in the background, easy for me to say, while we're writing code, while we're talking, and we just want to have some music to groove to. Check it out, streambeats.com. He's got playlists out there for Amazon Music, Apple Music, Spotify is what I'm using here today. You can even download the music if you want it local on your machine so that you can carry it with you even when you're offline. So check it out. Thank you so much, Harris Heller. We appreciate you making this music available for us to listen to today. And now, hopefully, the YouTube and Twitch wonks won't get upset at me listening to music in the background. Oh, you don't have a license for that. It's license free. Amir with a great question that I'm going to touch on a little bit later. I've got some links for you. Is there a way to migrate existing .NET Framework 4.7 WinForms apps to .NET 5? I've got a link that I will show you. It's in the show notes. I actually spent a lot of time writing up the show notes for today's stream. And it'll tell you exactly how to do it. We've got a tool that's going to get you 80% there, and you're going to have to check and tune anything that you have that's specific to Windows. But I will get you a link for that. How you doing there, Leet Geek? You cannot code listening to music with singing, says Mr. Noted. I kind of feel that also. Yeah. All of a sudden, Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones start singing, and I can't help but want to sing along with it, and I'm completely distracted. Thin Dog, good to see you. Hoy asks, what's the career path to Microsoft? Oh, start off by applying. Start off by applying. Go to careers.microsoft.com. Take a look at what they're looking for in a skill set. Learn the tools, learn the languages if you haven't already. Get a little bit of a practice in software engineering or whatever discipline. And take a look and apply for jobs there. And don't be a stranger clicking that apply for job button. What's my best advice to C# beginners like Christian on YouTube? Patience. Be patient. Write code that... Write some practice applications, websites that mean something to you, that you have a vested interest in. One of the first applications that I wrote helped to manage my comic book collection. I was in college and I had a comic book collection, 3 big boxes of comic books, and I wrote a simple application. I wanted to learn about database. I wanted to learn about some of the basics, and I wrote it in Visual Basic 6, migrated it to C#, and that's how I learned. No, we are not going to cover MVVM today. Nope, we are doing the basics of WPF today. But figure out that application that means something to you. Maybe you like movies. Maybe you like to cook. Maybe you've got a great garden. Whatever it is. Write a little application that maintains data for your garden, for the schedule of meals that you're making. Write a little application. Figure out what that is. Spend some time building just the basics. Hey, okay, we're going to record, here are the meals that we had for this week. Okay, how do I store pictures of the meals with these? I can take pictures on my phone. How can I store pictures of the photos of the meals so I can remember them? maybe there's calorie counts for those, and maybe I want to sum those up. How can I look up the calorie counts and get that in and figure out what all those little things are that are going to make that application interesting for you, and slowly build them, figure that out, and push against the features that are uncomfortable for you. The only way we learn is by getting outside of our comfort zone, trying something new, trying something different. And it's okay to say, you know what? I don't really like that. That's okay, because now you know what you prefer. Check that, explore and learn more by trying new things. And if you're building some sort of an application that you have a vested interest in, that's going to help you, maybe it's going to help the next person. Maybe it's going to help a family member. Maybe it's going to help your buddy down the street. Don't know. But then you can share with them. You could publish it out to GitHub. Hey, I was tinkering and built this little comic book collection app. Or I built this little meal management application. Check it out. What do you think? And other folks who have a vested interest in that topic, they might get involved too. Now you're an open source project maintainer. Now you're publishing and collaborating with folks. Now you've got customers. You've got folks that are using your application that you didn't even know. Start slow. Be patient. Get a vested interest in something that's going to make you happy. Figure out where that goes. And eventually, some of those things that you build are going to apply to some business that you're going to get a job at. And somebody's going to pay you to build an application that's very similar to that comic book database management app, or that meal management app. And now you've got a career. It's very cool stuff. Please come back with a .NET MAUI Blazor desktop. Talk to me in December. That's when we're going to go to that on this channel. Over on my channel, we're going to be talking about it hopefully in August. We'll be talking about MAUI Blazor with mobile applications. The concepts sometimes you can't understand. I want to ask how we can fully get a grasp of the C# language. Practice. Good morning, Fritz. How valuable are Microsoft certifications for a C# developer? Honestly, I don't think they are. Code samples that you've written, that you've shared, they go a long way. Will MAUI support DirectX components? I don't know. I haven't gotten that far. You're welcome, Christian. All the best to you in the Philippines over there on YouTube. A guy named Daniel started a small open source project back in the 90s because he couldn't figure out a good way to download files over the network. Today, curl is pretty much in every single device and program ever, including .NET Core V1 on Linux. Thindall's right. MyCon says, IntelliSense takes forever to scan my God class. Is there any way to get it to run faster? Really? Get some more memory on your machine. If it's taking a long time to scan and work with your code. All right, let's do this. Let's get into the code. Let me get my gunners on here. So this is how I dress for writing code. I got my gunners on, got a nice shirt, got a code-themed hat, and we can get into this. Let me get ready. Let me peel off featured chat here. And I'm going to move it up there so I can see it on my cheat screen. 16 gig of DDR4 should be plenty. Okay, how big is your God class? Let's get ready. I'm going to head over to... I'm going to grab my phone, so I've got my timer with me. And... yeah, that's the right button. All right. Let's... Oh. Got to get on the right microphone. There we go. That mic is good. Let me head over. We're going to get over to the green screen, and we're going to be able to talk more about WPF, get into the what's, whys, and building our first applications, and talking a little bit about XAML. So let's head over and get in the code. All right. Hey, there I am. Hello. See, now that's annoying. My YouTube cheat screen over here isn't... Yes, there's all that. Show me... See, I went and I even purposely set up ahead of time all my stuff here so that I could see. There's chat. Now I can see chat for YouTube. There we go. And I've got chat up there for Twitch. There we go. Fantastic. All right. Yes, this is very much a starter video. Of course, we have a GitHub repository here. GitHub.com /CSharpFritz with CSharpFritz. I think, is that link on the YouTube? Yes, it is. It's on the YouTube. You'll see it with the community links list in the description just below. And of course, those of you that are on Twitch, I think there's a message that'll drop in every few minutes. All right. So, no, I'm not getting into Dispatcher. That's way too complicated for this. I have a typo in the GitHub link on YouTube. Do I? There's an extra C in there. You're right. Darn it. All right. I can't edit it right now, but I will edit it before the recording goes out. So everything that we learn on this channel as part of this video series is right here inside this GitHub repository, and I have all of our sessions in here. This is season 5, and we are working on the 0503. There we go. Intro to WPF session. Way down here is where you're going to find everything that we're doing today. I've got a handful of source sample code that we're going to look at. I've got a bunch of documentation that we're going to talk about, because there are a bunch of questions around why should I be using WPF? What's so great about this XAML thing? How does code binding work? What's a code behind? We're going to talk about those things today. Taking a look at chat. Yes, this is very much for beginners. This is not an advanced session. And as I mentioned at the top of this, I am not a WPF expert. I had to spend some time relearning this last week. Yeah, that is a bit outside the scope of what we're going to be covering today. So we're not getting into Blazor today as well. This is WPF today. I talk about Blazor over on my channel on Twitch. We'll get through that. Is learning C# in 2021 worth it? Asks Tech Tuner. You better believe it's worth it. C# is part of the .NET framework. It is the fastest desktop framework. It is the fastest web framework that's available to you, and you can build and target mobile platforms like iOS and Android with Xamarin, and coming soon, when .NET 6 is released in November, with .NET MAUI. You'll be able to build with C# and deploy to any one of those environments. iOS, Android, Mac, Windows. You're going to be able to build for the cloud. There's great support on all the major cloud vendors, particularly that wonderful blue cloud, Microsoft Azure. You can build for IoT devices. You can take your C# code anywhere, and it is the fastest compiled framework that you can use on all of those platforms. So it is very much worth it. All right. So, nope, didn't miss much. Answered a bunch of questions here. Always, the AMA tag is on. These sessions are all about answering your questions, as long as it's around C#, the topic that we're discussing today. A little bit around .NET. I'll touch on some of those. Visual Studio, we'll answer some questions on that, of course. But we'll get in and we're going to talk about, and we're going to get into WPF today. Looking at YouTube. That's an interesting response, Stoico. Okay. If I work with WPF on .NET 2.0 to 4.7 for 10 plus years, will I see here anything new? Nope, you won't. .NET 5 is going to give you a very similar experience to what you're using with .NET Framework. It's not .NET Framework 2, it's .NET Framework 3 is when it first came out. Through .NET Framework 4.8, you should have the exact same experience, but you're going to be able to publish and get a faster application with .NET 5. All right. So, scrolling down here, let's talk about WPF. So, WPF is a user interface framework. It's been available since 2006. And it's been updated and released. It is open source. This is a link to the WPF repository here on GitHub, and you can see they've been working on and building with WPF since even 3 hours ago from when this video was recorded, okay? Just a few days ago, they were updating and working on the source for this. Now, this is a Monday morning, so 2 days ago would be Friday evening, so the team is actively developing, adding features, tuning, improving the performance of WPF as we get ready for .NET 6. So, great stuff that you're going to be able to build with for the past 15 years, and looking forward to the next 10, you're going to be able to work with WPF easily. And if you need to know if an application is going to live, an application framework is going to live beyond the year 2030, you probably don't have cars that are going to last that long. So we can reevaluate when we get out to 2028, determine, right? And to rewrite an application after 10 years isn't asking too much. So, can we develop Linux applications in C#? Sure can. Yes, you can. Are seen in YouTube. You're missing a .NET 5 template for Windows services in Visual Studio 2019. Reinstall. It should be there. So, all right. So, what does WPF stand for? Windows Presentation Foundation. So, this is a UI framework that lets you create desktop applications. It provides a broad set of application development features, including application models, resources, controls, graphics, layouts, blah, 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 blah. This framework is part of .NET. So, .NET framework that ships as part of Windows has WPF in it. So, while I'm going to be targeting .NET 5 as part of the demos today that we're going to be talking through, all of the language and features that we're going to talk about in WPF works on .NET Framework and works on Windows. You can shift back and forth between the two. You're going to want to choose one and compile for it, but you will have support for WPF on Windows, even into Windows 11. So it works on Windows 10, works on Windows 11, works on Windows 8, Windows 7. You can keep going back all the way to Windows XP. You'll find that it works. All right. What's the difference between .NET and Mono Framework? Mono Framework is a clean room version of the .NET framework that was built from scratch based on the specifications defined for .NET. And Mono was originally built by our friend Miguel Diacaza and is available to run on a bunch of different platforms. You'll typically see Mono used with Unity these days, but Mono has since been merged into .NET 5. So, I mean, there is still a Mono source code out there, but all the features of Mono that made it unique from .NET were merged into .NET 5, and .NET 5, .NET 6 going forward, you're going to find has all of those features and more. It's going to make it a much better experience for you going forward. But you can use it. Mono is not just X and A. Nope. Isn't Unity moving to .NET proper? I hope they are, but I don't know, Thindall. Yeah, I thought they were. I haven't followed up. I haven't been watching that. Let me see here. Can .NET be used for Linux application development? Answer that question. Look at the longevity of WinForms. WPF is going to be good for a while. Would I recommend Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code for building with WPF? Yes, you can make WPF applications with .NET 6. And I'll show you today. We're going to build our first application with .NET 6 today. But the question, can you use Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code? You can use whatever editor you would like to build WPF. If you choose to use Visual Studio 2019 or the upcoming 2022, and actually any Visual Studio version for WPF with .NET Framework going back to 2008, So Visual Studio 2008, 2010, 2012, 2013, 2015, 2017, 2019, 2022, you're going to get a designer experience in Visual Studio that's going to make it a lot easier for you to build your applications. And of course, there's tools like Blend that you can use as well to lay out and design your XAML. All right. The only thing that's missing is support for architectures of mono like ARM32. Panos. Talk to me after .NET 6 is released. You prefer Visual Studio over VS Code? Everybody has a favorite tool, and that's okay. Use the tools that make you happy. We brought .NET to all the tools to the command line so that you could use what makes you happy. Okay? So you're going to see, and I'm going to start off building with Notepad here with our first application. You can build with whatever editor you'd like. You want to use VI, you want to use Emacs, you want to use Pico, you want to use Atom, you want to use Brackets, you want to use Visual Studio Code, you want to use Writer, you want to use Visual Studio 2019, you want to use Visual Studio for Mac. You can do that. You're not going to be able to build and deploy on any platform except Windows. All right. What is a user interface framework? That is a fantastic question for a beginner, we need to make sure we answer this. A user interface framework is a framework that allows you to design and build an application that has more than just a command line interaction, right? I don't even have terminal running yet. Get terminal running on this machine, right? So more than just here at the command line or a website, it allows you to build a user interface, a graphical user interface that you can interact with. So Windows Forms, WPF, the ASP.NET technologies, Blazor, Xamarin, all are user interface frameworks that you're able to build with. Now, the ASP.NET technologies also allow you to build the server-side pieces to render that HTML that you're going to render in the browser, right? Default to PowerShell? Yes, that's right. I like using PowerShell on this machine. So let me go to dev, where is it? C# for CSharpFritz, and go into my sessions. I want season 5, 0503. Here we go. And I installed Oh My Posh here in my terminal so that I can get a little bit more information coming out on my prompt. Let me see. I'm going to go into the source. Yeah, that's fine. That's where we're going to start. So now WPF is resolution independent. It will stretch and fill the screen as need be when you configure certain things inside of your windows, inside of your applications that you're building. But you can use it to work with controls, data binding, layout, 3D, 2D graphics, animation styles, templates, documents, media, text, typography, and you can build applications that incorporate all kinds of other elements of .NET. So, key piece of WPF is this thing, XAML. And XAML is an XML-based markup language. It's a declarative language that you use inside of WPF, UWP, Xamarin Forms apps, and coming with .NET 6, you'll be able to use it with .NET MAUI. So from the official documentation, XAML is a declarative markup language applied to the .NET Core programming model. XAML simplifies creating UI for a .NET Core application. Blah, 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 blah. You can read this on your own time. We don't need to discuss this. When represented as text, XAML files are XML files that generally have the .xaml extension right there. These files can be encoded by any XML encoding, but typically UTF-8. And you can get started building a very simple element inside of a XAML application to build that part of the user interface by doing something as simple as declaring a stack panel with a button inside of it with some content declared. Click me, and it will render that button, and you'll be able to click that button. Notice the capitalization on these tags. Unlike HTML, the case of the tags is important because the tags refer to a .NET class, a .NET object that you're going to end up loading and rendering. And those components, of course, are case sensitive. So if we're going to build and use syntax like this, we need to be aware of the case that we create these with. And that's where using an editor like Visual Studio is going to help you significantly. Visual Studio Code, Notepad, some other text editor, some other code editor that doesn't have IntelliSense, that doesn't have the ability to check the syntax of your XAML, is going to be a little bit of a struggle for you to work with and get appropriate syntax sometimes. You might struggle with getting your tag casing to match. So that's a known thing that folks are going to go through, and that's why folks are going to do better with a full-fledged IDE that does have tools like IntelliSense. Doesn't it assume 96 DPI? It does not anymore. WinForms and WPF both support high resolution on desktop, on Windows desktops. What is a good learning resource for learning .NET? How you doing? There's lots of great videos here on the .NET channel. Check out learn.microsoft.com. Go to .NET, click the Learn button, and you can learn .NET there. We've got all kinds of videos, learning material, training courses, Jupyter notebooks that you can go through and learn right in your browser, right in Visual Studio Code. It is great stuff. Let me go to some questions over here on YouTube. Which is easier, Windows Forms or WPF? They're both kind of the same. Can I make WPF applications for .NET 6 on Ubuntu or other Linux distros? You can write them. You won't be able to test or deploy them. You won't be able to execute them. You could run in a VM over there that runs Windows, but WPF, Windows Forms, they're Windows frameworks. You need to be on Windows. Well, there's lots of questions about WPF and WinForms on Linux or Mac. Does not work there. And people keep asking this, and I see it again and again and again. In chat. Like, sorry. Is WPF the best option for desktop apps? We believe .NET MAUI will be the best option for desktop apps at the end of the year. And yeah, for .NET developers, we believe .NET MAUI will be your best option. Is WPF comparable to a web front-end framework such as Vue, Reactor, etc.? A little bit. Okay. So best resources to learn WPF UI. See, that's something that we're kind of struggling with and we need to build more of. Yep, tutorials on .NET Microsoft.com/learn with tutorials in the browser, live coding in the browser. They're pretty cool. You don't need to install anything. You can work on a tablet. You can work on your phone. You can work on whatever type of desktop, laptop. So really great stuff. So WPF has this concept of XAML, this markup like this. And we have this separation of markup and code behind. So you write this declarative markup that says, this is the shape of my user interface. This is how I want it to look. And ASP.NET developers are used to seeing this. Blazor developers are used to seeing this. Folks that build with Node, where you have, here's my template, and I've got some code that triggers and interacts with that template. It's a similar experience. Similar. You end up with this separation of appearance and behavior, which then gives you a little bit of separation of responsibilities. And that's something that we as developers really enjoy, because development and maintenance costs become reduced. Appearance-specific markup can be changed and managed by one person. It's not tightly coupled to the code. So if we just want to change the color of a label, we want to change a font size, whatever, those appearance-related things, we change our markup in one place, and all of our business logic for that lives somewhere else. You're not touching the same files. You're just changing those styles. You're changing those appearance-related resources. Development ends up being more efficient because designers can implement the application's appearance simultaneously with developers who are implementing application's behavior. So we've got this separation of responsibilities. Folks can write the XAML content while other folks write the C# content. Bring that together later on. Globalization and localization is very much simplified. So let's do the first Hello World application. The simple button that you click it and it says, Hello World, welcome to WPF, that type of thing. I'm going to take a quick look at chat. Any idea the best option to build Windows apps with Vue, Angular, React? If you want to use those technologies, you're going to end up using Electron, and I don't recommend that because Electron application is difficult to maintain. Yes, you can build .NET apps in Jupyter Notebooks, and we did that in Season 1. You can go back in the playlist on YouTube for C# on with CSharpFritz on YouTube, and you'll see there's like 12 episodes of that. Is it true we can build in WPF WinForms and have users run the apps on non-Windows based mobile devices? No. Well, if you're remoted in somewhere, I suppose. Honestly, I haven't looked at Windows 365 yet. Can't buy the hat. It was given away at Build 2018. Is Maui still using XAML? Asks Arson. It's one of your options. You can also build with Blazor with .NET Maui. What's the future of WPF? I just showed they're still building it right now. There's performance tuning and a couple new features coming with .NET 6. You see many companies in the UK having trouble to find developers. Yes, because developers want to move on and build with the latest, greatest, shiny framework, when in reality, the companies that have money to spend are building with enterprise-grade frameworks, desktop frameworks like WinForms, WPF, the Java frameworks, because they're going to get support. They're going to be around for a while. Try to find somebody that's going to support an Angular 4 application. Nobody. They're not going to do it. So if you're a young developer and you might be in love with the latest and greatest JavaScript framework, you're not going to find a job as easily as if you're using an enterprise framework that comes with support like .NET, like Java. Is Microsoft planning to bring materialistic controls to for WPF? As I have no idea about that. Can't answer that question. Will Visual Studio Code be rewritten in .NET Maui? No. Hey, Jeremy. Yes, that's right. ARM64 support for WPF in .NET 6. In Twitch, Tratpingvin asks, can I mix XAML and Blazor with .NET Maui? Yes, indeed. Can you just add a XAML style file and you've got material design? C#.NET is the best choice in your opinion for starting. I agree. All right, let's get into this. Let's just do the hello world for folks that are learning XAML here. We can actually build all of this at the command line, and I am going to build all of this at the command line. The sample code is all in the repository. I've even got the code, the steps here for building just the simple hello world embedded in this document. And I'm not going to touch Visual Studio at all for this application. So I'm going to build it at the command line with the .NET SDK. So of course you're going to go get .NET at .NET. There's a big download button there. Download that, install the command line tools. It comes with Visual Studio 2019, 2022, 2017, if you still have that version installed. But I can work here, and I'm going to create my first application, .NET New, WPF, and I'm going to call this Live First App. So -O indicates this is the folder we're going to write it into. So .NET New, it's a WPF template. There it is, built succeeded. And I can now go into Live First App. And I have a series of files here. AppXAML CS, assembly type. I've got my project file, and I've got main window XAML CS. These two files, main window XAML CS, and you see it with app there, they come together. They're two parts of the same conceptual unit inside of your application that, well, in the case of main window, make up a window that we can manipulate. We can put user interface controls on, like buttons and drop-down boxes. We call those controls in WPF, and then deliver value. So let's go in. Let's take a look at main window.xaml, and it has this bit of XML. Now let's take a little bit of a look here before I go and start changing and adding things in here. So there's a bunch of XML namespaces here. These are all kinds of features to, first off, define what's the name of the C# class that this corresponds to. And the class name that you're going to see here typically is the same name as the file name with the namespace jammed in front of it. So we called this application Live First App. So the default namespace for our application is Live First App. So the class that this markup deals with is Live First App main window. And there's a couple of namespaces here that wire up and tell .NET the various WPF and XAML features that we want to enable in this file. And there's other features that you can light up with some other namespaces. I'm not going to get into those today, but these are features, basically defining features that we can light up here. The local namespace here specifies this is the namespace of my application, so that I can reference other projects, other files, other classes inside this project that I may want to load and interact with. And I've got the title of this window, right? The caption, right up here where it says main window dash notepad, way up there. I can control what that says by setting this value, and the height and width of this window. So let's make this just a little bit smaller. Let's make this 250, and I'll make this 200 wide. And now I'm given a grid element here. And for me, as an HTML developer, I look at this and right, I always listen to me. I've been thinking for the last 10, 15 years, don't use tables for layout. But a table is a grid. And here we are using a grid for layout. WPF is different. It's not the same. I see a bunch of questions coming through on YouTube. I will come to those questions in just a little bit. So main window does sound better than Form 1. Yeah, it's a little bit. Not talking about Avalonia. But there are styling approaches you can use with WPF. Yes, Visual Studio is built with WPF. So I'm going to put a button in here that we're going to be able to click. So button, and I'm going to specify content. That's the text that I want to put inside of my button, and I'm going to have it say, click me. Now, I want to specify the event handler for my button, and let me make sure I follow along with exactly what I put here. Yeah. So I'm going to create this event handler called click that specifies, here's, darn it. There we go. That specifies, what do I do when you click this button, right? What's that event handler? And it always struck me that the event handler is named click and not on click, right? We see in JavaScript, we see in Blazor, we see in ASP.NET, it's on click because it's an event handler. But we're responding to an action, so we just call it click here. I can also give this a name, sure. And I'll just call this my button. So on click, I will say button underscore click. Okay. I'm going to copy the name of that, save, and go back over here. And I'm going to jump into main window XAML CS. There it is. And I'm going to add a method that I make sure wires up and is that click handler that tells it what to do here. So I'm going to go in and what just happened there? I don't like when that happens. Yeah. So let's add a public void, and it was called button click object sender, and I forget the event element that we put over here. It is routed event arcs. That's it. That's it. Right. So now I've got a very simple event handler here, and I'm just going to open a message box. Message box show hello live stream. Okay. So I'm all at the command line. I'll run .NET build. Looks good. And .NET run. And I get simple form with a button that says click me. I can make this form whatever size I want. Notice it still has the name main window on it because I didn't change the title. But I click that and I get the message box appearing. So we hit a couple of important concepts there for folks that are starting with WPF. Very simple XAML that defined a button object that lives inside of a window. And the button had a click method on it that we connected to, and we defined a method behind, in that code behind file, the main window XAML CS, that button knows how to get connected to. We wired it up by giving it the same name as the name of the method we wrote in main window XAML CS. When we clicked the button, it fired and executed that method, and we did message box show. Easy concept to follow along with. Hang on. Not that file. I want the other one. That file. And Fritz's first application. WPF app. .NET run again. I wish Notepad had a dark mode. Wouldn't that be great? There you go. Fritz's first WPF app, because I changed the title attribute. And that still works, because I changed just the user interface. So you can build, you can run WPF completely at the command line. You don't need Visual Studio. You can run things all building the new application. You can even, if I show you the templates here, you can even create new application, new custom controls, user control libraries. You can generate all of that stuff right here with templates at the command line. Okay? Yes, I know. All right. Let me take a look. Let me go to chat questions coming in. Am I going to cover DI and WPF? No, that's too far advanced. So what's the grid class on Bootstrap that we use on? It's the grid class in Bootstrap in Windows. On web development. That grid class that you use with Bootstrap helps to format tables nicely. It's just some styling to place on it. A little bit different. What's the difference between a user control and a custom control? So a user control is you putting together a handful of existing controls. I forget the extension. It's another XAML file that you define that you can then reference and use inside of your application. Custom controls are typically built with just C# and manage all the placement of all of the pixels and allow you to do additional rendering, very complex rendering that you may want to do inside of your controls. For the purposes of placement and using those inside of your application, there's no difference. There is just a difference in how you create and interact with them. And we eliminated that difference in types of controls when it comes to things like in Blazor, in .NET MAUI. But what you will see is with WPF, there is a difference between these. When you buy a control package from a vendor like DevExpress, Infragistics, Progress Software, SyncFusion, TXText Control, those folks, you're getting a bunch of custom controls that have been built and optimized, and they manage every pixel on the screen and every interaction with a lot of complex code behind the scenes. All right, let me take a look over here at YouTube. Let me see. How do you estimate the height and width values? What's the unit of the measurements? Those are pixels. All right, I'm not going to talk about MVVM today. Several people, MVVM, no. And I get to every question in chat. Please don't ask the same question again and again and again. Is MAUI supposed to replace WPF in the end? If yes, then what is the reason WPF is still being developed? .NET MAUI is intended to be our premier user interface framework going forward. Why is WPF continuing to be developed? Because folks are still using it. And there's millions of WPF applications out there. Unlike other software framework vendors, Microsoft provides typically a good migration pattern and a long support cycle for all of the applications, all of the tools that you use. We realize that you're a stakeholder in how we build and develop our applications, our tools, our frameworks, and we want to make sure that we listen to you and we deliver the best experience for you so that you want to continue developing with our tools and you're not cursing the tools and, oh my gosh, I need to completely write in order for me to get from version 1 to version 2 of this. We want to make sure that you have a great experience doing that, and we work hard to make sure that there are migration strategies, that there are tools that are going to help you get between different versions of technologies. And I'm going to show you the Upgrade Assistant tool a little bit later in this stream. Where you can get it, I'm not going to actually apply it to anything, but I'll show you all of the documentation that you can get about that, that's going to help you to migrate your applications from WPF on .NET Framework to WPF with .NET 5, .NET 6, so you get better performance. Click once with all of the binaries that you need installed directly from your favorite server. So really great stuff of that. All right. Cool. So let's go over all right. The next sample application is going to talk about binding and loading data into controls and responding and interacting with controls, and this is the names application. The official documentation has this written up. It's over here. Create a new WPF app with WPF.NET. It was updated in January 2021. And it says the desktop guide documentation for .NET 5 is under construction. All of this stuff works that's in this documentation with .NET 5. I've already got this loaded into the sample folder. I'm going to open this with Visual Studio. I have Visual Studio 2019 installed here, and I'm going to walk through and show you exactly what's written. We'll talk about this, and I'll run it, and we'll write a little bit of extra code to finish out the sample because I feel like there's some missing pieces here. So let me open the demos here. You love VB.net? We like VB.net also. Yes, indeed. So, can I see the chat? No, I can't see the chat. NOR chess. Sorry. Can't see it. No. I'm having a hard time. Is WPF architecture complicated? You're a JavaScript web developer, accepted a desktop web app, thinking a desktop app job, thinking of WPF. Sometimes I'm super confident. It's not terribly complicated. No, you should be able to work with this pretty easily. So there's the first app. If you want to go back and you want to see that in Visual Studio, it's here in the solution file. Let me open the main window for this. Now, when you open and you work with WPF applications in Visual Studio, you get a designer with the XAML here at the bottom. And let me scoot this over so we can see the whole thing here. And I've got the XAML a little bit larger there so we can see it. So this is Fritz's wonderful names application with a height and width defined to start with. And it's giving you that grid layout right off the get-go here in the designer. So this becomes very handy for our designers, for our user interface folks, to be able to see exactly where things are going to be placed. And this grid has 2 rows and 2 columns. They're defined using the grid row definitions and grid column definitions elements. Kind of sounds like TR and TD for HTML folks. Kinda. So we have these definitions, so grid row definitions. I have a first row that is automatically sized, and a second row that has a height of star. And the star says, fill the rest of the form. Make it whatever the rest of this is. So the first row is automatically set to the height of the tallest element in there. So we get names in there and it's only as high as that. And the rest of this is the height of the form. Now there was a margin defined for the grid. So you see there's a little bit of space outside the block here. And particularly those of you that might be watching on phones, it might be a little bit hard to see that in the designer. If you're watching on a desktop, if you're watching on a nice big screen with YouTube, you're going to be able to see these blue lines here and just how much space is there. And I'm broadcasting at high definition here, 1080p at 60 frames a second. You should be able to see that on my screen. The 2 columns that are defined here, each of the columns has a width of star. And since they're both star, well, they're going to be as big as they can be. And since we've defined 2 of them, they're both going to stretch to be half the width of my form. So I've defined this very simple layout using a grid here. John Doe asks on Twitch, is the grid removable? Yes, this is the layout component we chose to use for this sample application. I'll show you some other grid layouts a little bit later, and some things that you can choose, some other layout components, and you can dig in. There's documentation for them that'll show you how they behave. Looking over at YouTube. Are WTF puns frequently used in the WPF world? I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not a WPF developer, so. All right, so I have that grid layout defined. Next, I want to put that names label up here. So I just have a label, and inside of that label element, I put the text names, and it placed it in the first cell of the grid, starting from top left, and I think it works across. I forget which way it goes. But then I can define where I want my controls. I can explicitly define and not rely on it placing things. My list box, I wanted to put it in row 1, but in the first column. So we count our rows, we count our columns starting with 0. Just like we do arrays, right? The first element of an array is array 0. Same thing with the count of our rows and columns. So grid row 1 goes in here, and you can see it's lit up, it's highlighted, my list box that's inside this cell. So, and I've defined a name for this list box. So x:\name, right? Remember the X namespace defined up here? That's XAML. Now, if you don't want to have to remember which namespace is which down here, I was here. You can also go in and use the properties dialog box over here. And, right, I was on the, come here, properties. And you can fill in and use these just like we did with WinForms. You can use the properties box over here to set all the properties on your WPF XAML more interactively, more visually, instead of having to remember and write all of the XML appropriately. That being said, though, you will get IntelliSense as you start typing XAML here. And you will get IntelliCode showing you with a star the most popular features that folks have used to configure that component. So that's handy if you like to stay hands on the keyboard and you don't want to use the mouse and be a very visual configuration person. A lot of folks, typically web developers, really like working right here with their markup. And that's okay. This is all about choice and choosing what makes you happy as a developer. So, all right. Too bad XAML is HTML rather than JSON. You don't have it quite right, but XAML is like HTML. JSON is more a database format, data format. Do all Xamarin Tools layouts shown in docs apply to WPF? No. WPF and Xamarin have different... They have a slightly different XAML dialect. There's different components that do the same thing but have different names. So there are folks that really enjoy XAML, like 3D Polywraith there on Twitch, says XAML is life. Absolutely. I look at XAML as a web developer, as a long-time web developer, somebody who's been building for the web for 25 years. I look at XAML here and think, why isn't that just HTML? But that's me as a web developer. There are other folks who were desktop developers going and choosing XAML. This is very comfortable for them. It's a choice. It's all about what makes you happy. So, all right, moving on. So next, I define a stack panel. Now, a stack panel is another layout type of component that I can use. Now, the stack panel is being placed in grid row 1, grid column 1. So it's going in this cell right here. And I'm going to place in that stack panel a text box right here, and then a button. Now, a stack panel is going to orient these vertically. So they're stacked. Okay? So I have the text box, then the button. They're ordered in that same order, being placed inside that stack panel. So the stack panel is just allowing us to set those up so that they're right on top of, right above each other, and they're given a little bit of space around them that we can use. And there's margins declared. Check this out. There's margins declared here, right? Margin 5000 and margin, it's behind my coffee. Oh no, there we go. And nope, it's still, well, it's just behind my coffee. Can I scroll down just one click? There it is. And margin 0500. Now for us who might be coming to this, for me, who comes to this from web development, I look at margin 0500 and I think top, right, bottom, left. And I realize I did that backwards. Top, right, bottom, left. That's not the case here. It actually starts left, top, right, bottom is the order that these margin numbers are in. So a slight shift for us to have to know. Once again, there are tools here that you can click into in the property box, and there is, we can even search for it, and you can see right there how you configure it how you want, and it'll interpret and place the value appropriately here. The second digit is 5, and 5 is the top margin that was applied. All right. So we've placed a button here, and the button name is button add, and it's got some content, the text of add name, and it's got a click handler defined right here, button add underscore click. And you'll see typically these method names here are named after the name of the control, button add in this case, underscore, and whatever event it is, whatever interaction it's going to handle in this case, click. So I have that list box over there, and I've got a text box and this button. Now, if I take a look at the source code that is the code behind on this, right, there we go. So there's my main window. Now there's the add click. So if is null or is not null or white space, the text inside the text box, right? The text box was called text name, and the list of names items does not contain that text, then list names items add whatever that text is. Very simple interaction that's going to allow us to just put names in the box. That's easy. That's easy to understand. Let's just put names in the box, and there it is. I've got names, and I can, right? I didn't put a title on this window. Actually, it is up there. There it is. Fritz's wonderful name application, and I've got this Visual Studio toolbar up here. More on that in a minute. So I can start putting names in the box. So we'll put Fritz in the box. And let's see, who else is here? I see Dukasoft is here. Sure, we'll put Dukasoft in the box. And who's over here on YouTube that I can grab? I see Ankit. Sure, we'll put Ankit's name in the box. Let me grab one more person over here. I'll grab Thindal's name in Twitch. And one more person from over here on YouTube. I see Jeremy Sinclair. We'll put Jeremy's name in there. There we go. So it's a little list box, and I added names to it, and piece of cake. Nothing really interesting about it, but we showed how to work with data, put it into a control that manages a collection of data, and how to click a button, handle the button, get data in and out of that text box. Actually, not really into the text box. So if I go to put a name in here that's already in the box, it doesn't do anything. It wants a unique set of names. So I put some entries in here. Hey, let's do a couple other things. Right here. Hey, let's show an error message box if the name is already in the box. So let's write that real quick. Let's go through what that is going to be. So I have my if there that decides to put the name in the box. Well, we can very easily say else if, and I just want to do if list names items contains text name dot text, right? So if the name is in the box, we can say message box dot show, and I can specify now some message to show. So let's make this a little descriptive. The name text name dot text is already in the list. Now, if I want to make that an error, an error window with an indicator that this is an error, I can provide some additional information here if I use the configuration like this one that also has, see it there, message box image. So I'm going to specify the caption first, error while adding name, the message box button. All right, so message box button, and I'm just going to give it the OK button. Sorry, didn't work. And let's put these on separate lines so we can see them. And the last item that we're going to choose here is the message box image. So message box image, and I've got a bunch of different options here. Error, information, warning, blah, blah, blah. I'll make it the error one, but maybe it should be a warning because we caught it. I don't know. So I'm going to save that. I'm not rebuilding. But hot reload is available. And if I click add name, oh, it's not hot reloading. Click that. And now I didn't rebuild my application. I clicked the Visual Studio 2022 hot reload button, and it loaded up the new code, and now it handles the error. Okay, that's something. I believe I can change what's on that button. Where'd the button go? Instead of add name, let's say add name to list. And if I come back over here, I didn't have to push a button or anything. It just refreshed and updated automatically. You get these features as a developer in Visual Studio 2022. In 2019, there's a similar set of features, but there's even more coming with the next version. So let me go back over and let's do these next two. Let's clear the text box so we don't create the same name twice. And that kind of makes sense. So if I want to just clear that text box, piece of cake, text name, text equals string empty, right? And I'll force the refresh there. So now if I go to put another name in the list, let me go to, I'm going to look over here. I see Chris Jones. I'm going to add from Twitch, CMJ Chris Jones, and click add name to the list, and it clears out the box appropriately so I don't inadvertently double click and try to add the same name twice. A nice to have would be, let's move the cursor back to the text box after the button click. Sure. Right, so if we want to add a bunch of names, you want to move what's called the focus. Where is the mouse pointer at so that we can interact? You want to do this manipulation of the focus when folks are using a form for data entry. This is really good so that folks are typing and they finish, they press enter to finish, keying in an entry. You want to move their focus. You want to move them back to someplace where they're going to get started again. So if I want to move the focus back to that text box, it's real easy to just say focus and just call that method, and I'll force. So now, right when I'm in here, let's see, I just pulled somebody from Twitch. I'll go over here. I see Olympus Tech. Let's go, we'll say Olympus, and I'll click add name to list, and it puts the cursor back in the text box. So I'll go back over to Twitch, and let's see, I'll grab Moshiko. And if I tab, press enter, and it moves the cursor back. Over here, I see, I already grabbed Ankit. I see Hoi. I'll add Hoi. Hoi. And it, right, you see this interaction. It makes it easier to work with and as an end user because the cursor goes to where you expect it to be. You restarted your data entry process. So that's a little bit about hot reload. Editing and entering fields inside of, and manipulating fields inside of a WPF application, working with the list control and working with, it's the list box control, and working with text box and with buttons. Let me take a look over on Twitch. I'll start here. Yes, today we're covering just WPF. Let me see. I see a couple other things. Visual Studio 2020 for developing production apps or just for playing? No. Visual Studio 2022 for developing production apps. I would go for and do that now. Did I fix the same name ad again? Yes. It does that same name check, right? So it'll do that check here. If it fails, if we do have the same name, then it will write that out. Write the error message. And it doesn't clear the text box. We could clear the text box, right, by bringing this down. So after the message box is shown, clear the text box. You may want to do that, you may not. Your application, scale up and do more. Your application may vary. Let me see, taking a look over here on YouTube. Should I start learning XAML UI in preparation for MAUI? Yes and no, because with .NET MAUI you can also do Blazor, but having a foundation of XAML is going to help you. So please stick with English in chat. Sure, the list could be sorted. We could do stuff with that as well. Aside from modifying XAML, can you click and drag created elements while designing the UI in WPF, just like in WinForms? Absolutely. Right? I can, come on. I should be able to move these around. Let me see, goes to toolbox. If I want to add, well, it's inside of a stack. That's what's going on over there, I believe. I can drag that in, and it places appropriately. WinForms has very pixel-specific locations of things, where WPF has locations and layout controls that are going to place things in very aligned and very pixel-perfect layouts. So you have choices for how you want to work with it. You can't exactly drag it wherever you want, but you can drag it and place it wherever you'd like in the layout, and it'll render that appropriately. If they entered a number, you must check for that. Yeah, Zaid, that's a very good point. If this is a box that's collecting only names, sure, check to make sure they keyed in a name, that there's no special characters or no numbers there. Sure, additional business logic. And the point is, with WPF, that business logic is behind in the C# class, not in the declarative layout for the user interface. Looking back over here at chat, yes, this is very, very beginning WPF, just for folks to get started. Is there a go live license for Visual Studio 2022? No, we're still in previews. How do you remove the last column that contains nothing in list view? I don't know. I need to see what you're talking about. Should we use regex in the number case? You could do that. You can use a regular expression to test if there's numbers inside the text box. Sure. Absolutely. That's definitely an option for adding that feature, adding that error check, that validation here inside this application. .NET is the most productive framework Isaac Proton has ever seen. I totally agreed. I've been using it for 20 years, absolutely, and love the framework. It's made my career. So, taking one more look at Twitch before I move on. Trim the input? Sure, you can do that. When you use a regular expression, hackers can attack that. Yes, they can. So we typically don't recommend folks use regular expressions with untrusted input. So in an application like this, there's not a server that they're attacking. It's their own machine that they're breaking. So if they use a regular expression to overflow, who cares? It's their own machine. But on a web server where we don't want to trust the input that's being sent in, because it could be nefarious, it could be evil in attempting to do something mean to your server, we don't want to trust the input to a web server or a web service. So you're going to want to sanitize it first, or pass along to some other data that you would use a regular expression on, but you don't want to directly trust the data that's being passed in. All right. Much respect for folks that can write a regex without a tester. Yeah. All right, let's move on. Does XAML support responsive like Bootstrap? Yes. very much so. One of the samples, not that over here. Did I include? So the list of all the WPF controls that are available: buttons, data display, date display, calendars, date pickers, dialog boxes, digital ink, so you can work with somebody using a stylus on your touch screen, right? You can interact with that. Document viewers, document readers, there, input text box, rich text box, password box, all kinds of ways to do layout. Lots of different things you can do there. Media, menus, navigation, selection, user information. Yeah. I'm only going to get into the second demo that I had here. That's going to allow us to, we're going to connect out and we're going to use Bing to search for images. And in this screenshot that I took, I searched for my screen name, CSharpFritz, and then Bing returned this lovely thumbnail. So there's a data binding with entity framework sample. I'll let you get into that, but this is from a Learn module, right? Internet connected Windows applications. And I'm just now remembering I didn't go and grab. I can't use Edge for this because I don't have it configured to hide the keys that I use. So I'm going to go out to my Azure portal. I already have a service set up out here that uses cognitive services. That's not my ID. That uses cognitive services to allow me to search Bing. Yes, send the notification to my phone, and I will click the button. See, this is why I have my phone over here. So I can click the button, two-factor, Face ID, there we go. And now I'm logged into Azure. While this is loading up, never knew you can search with Bing. It absolutely works. Will Maui be better than or replace WPF? We think it'll be better because it'll work on four platforms: Windows, Mac, iOS, and Android. So that's a pretty big deal to be able to get that everywhere. I called this remove me. Yeah, there it is. There's my Bing search. So I can knock this down afterwards because you're going to end up getting my key. There's nothing I can do about that because it's going to get embedded in code. So I'm going to copy that. And I'll go over to the second sample that I have here. And we'll talk through this. Visual search. And this is a very easy concept. How do we connect our WPF application to microservices, to web services, so that we can provide some sort of additional interaction? It's one thing to go and get data from a database, but if you want to go get data from an external service, how do you do that? How do you get that interaction? So this is a very simple design surface here. You can't really see it, but there's an image component right there. So we're going to be able to put an image inside this control, and it's got some things configured with it, and I have a little text box to go with it, search terms text box, that we're gonna key in what we want to search for, and there is a key down method handler here, event handler here, search terms text box, key down, and it's hiding behind my coffee there again. Move coffee, move, go over there. No, now it's in front of it. Where can I put my coffee? I need my coffee. Put it over there. You go away. So right there, key down. So when you press a key, this is going to trigger, right? While the cursor is in the text box, this will trigger. And I want to put the found object image in that image box. So let's take a look at how we interact and how we can get data from Bing and load it into the box. Now, this is based on a sample that's part of a Microsoft Learn module. Over in the documentation, there's a link. This is the right internet connected Windows apps. Okay, if you click through there, you'll see the Learn module. You can go through and you can learn more about building internet connected Windows applications. But this is the sample for working with WPF, and we'll talk through this briefly. So my subscription key goes up in here, and I'm just going to paste that in, and it's the word loading. Really? 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 It's not loading. There it is. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to reset that in just a minute here. So main window, initialize component, search terms, text box, key down, right? So here's what happens when you press a key in the text box. So if the key that was pressed was the enter key, so you finish typing what you wanted to search for, and you press enter, and there's some text here. The length of what you keyed into the text box is greater than 0. Image URL equals find URL of image, search terms, text box, text. So go find the image for us to put in the box based on that text box. Found object image source is a new bitmap image. So we're going to create a new image based on the URI of the image that it found from Bing, and it's an absolute URI. It's an absolute web address that we're going to put inside that bitmap. Now, let's do that search. So find URL of image down here is going to perform Bing image search. More on that in a second. But it's going to get some search result, and it's in JSON format. So we need to parse it out and look for a value and get the first. If there's more than one value in there, we need to get the first value out of it, and we're going to grab the URL and return that. Otherwise, we're going to return just a image not found stub image that's stored out on Learn for us in the docs. But doing the Bing search, this is where the rubber meets the road. How do I actually query Bing? Here it is. So there's a base URI that we're going to go to, and that was defined way up here. This is defined by the service. API Bing Microsoft.com v70 images search. We're searching for an image, so we have to connect out to that. So we're going to grab that base URI, and we're going to put on the end of it q equals, and we're going to escape. We're going to URI escape, encode whatever it was that you searched for. So we're concatenating all that together, so we end up with an address that goes to Bing and does that search. And we are going to use the web request object. Create a request going to that Bing address. We're going to pass in our subscription key, and we're going to get a response right here. Okay? Let me scroll over so you can see the rest of it. And get the result of that response asynchronously. The JSON that was returned from that's what Bing returns to us. We're going to read from the response stream, read it to the end, and we're going to put it into a string there. And we're going to create a result object to return that value. Extract some Bing HTTP headers here for any relevant headers we might need to go and inspect later, and return that search result. So we're making a web request, just like if you were in your browser and you clicked search and you're searching your favorite search engine. We like Bing here at Microsoft. And we're going to return those values. This is going to return that address, and we'll be able to put an image in the box. So let me set this as the startup project. Come on, where'd it go? Build, I don't want to build, I want to start debug, start debugging. So this is going to start up, and we're going to be able to see, there's my bot, you can't see the image window there, but I can key in, what do you want to search for? Well, let's search for Visual Studio. And it's doing a search against Bing, and I get Visual Studio logo. I want to search for, well, you saw if I search for CSharpFritz, what it returns. Let me search for, let's search for the CONCACAF Gold Cup is this week. CONCACAF Gold Cup. So that's a big football competition here in North America. And it's, look at that, it's showing you what the knockout round is going to look like. Okay. All right, I'm feeling it. But you can search for it and you can tinker with this, and it searches for those terms and puts things in the box here, right? If I search for Microsoft Azure, right, we should get, there you go, Microsoft Azure logo. Simple. Does the web request, gets an address back from Bing. We're just grabbing the first one and put it in the box. We could turn that search result, if we got more than one search result, we saw how to use a list box. I could put those images inside a list box so you could scroll through them and interact with it that way. The point is, you know how to do .NET now. You just need to learn how some of these user interface controls work together, and then you can start using your .NET knowledge to search the web, to render images, to do these other things, and build the application that's appropriate for you. Let me see here. Yeah, this is very much WPF Essentials, just basic beginner stuff. Why was I using an async method instead of async await? We could have put a task on this and had it return it. Sure. Down here. But it was converting it to a synchronous return right there. So, last thing that I want to show you before I wrap up here, there's a entity framework sample that I linked to. You can check that out. But there is a link here for migrating to WPF apps on .NET Core. So taking your WPF on .NET Framework app, migrating it to .NET Core. We've got a tool for you called the .NET Upgrade Assistant, right there, that you can click and download. And there's a complete set of instructions here about the various steps that you're going to do. It breaks down into basically, you got to get ready, you got to prepare your project, migrate your project file from the old .NET Framework format to the new format. The new format is compatible with .NET Framework, but you need to get into the new format because you're going to use that going forward with .NET 6. You're going to need to fix some build issues and do some testing after you apply the changes. I see a bunch of questions, comments in Twitch. Coffee is the star of the stream. Yeah, it is. Fantastic. All right. Let me wrap it up. Let me go back over to the main desk and let's talk about what's coming next. Let me see. Head back over here. Get back to the. Hey, there I am. How's it going? Even if you're not a beginner, this information is valuable since we get into coding bubbles. You're right. You're right. Excuse me. All right. How can you take Blazor pages to WPF and desktop? Asked Johnny. You can use the WebView 2 component. And with .NET 5, with .NET 6, you place that component inside of your WPF application, and you can embed your Blazor interactions there. So, yeah, that's the first time I've presented or talked about WPF in 10 years, 15 years. So, yeah, I spent a day or two relearning WPF last week. So we are just about out of time. Taking a look here, making sure that I cover just a few things here. You saw the introduction of WinForms a few weeks ago. Says Go Quantum. Can I tell you what the key differences between WinForms? Covered that earlier. Sorry, Go Quantum. You can rewind and go back. I'm going to make sure I cover other folks' questions here. All of the samples, all of the content. Let me make sure I share the correct link this time. There it is. Let me share that in both on both Twitch and on YouTube. I will fix the description on YouTube. This video will be published to YouTube almost immediately after this. I see no questions on Learn TV. And I think we're good for now. When is Maui going to be... when Maui is released, will it replace WPF? Reset button. I've gotten that question 5-6 times today. No, it will not replace WPF. These glasses, are they any type of special for working? These are Gunnar glasses. These are made by Gunnars, Gunnar. And I like these ones. These are the Lightning 360. You can't see it because I've got long hair, but they've got an angle there, so they go just up a little bit higher and don't press against my temple. So not a problem that you just arrived. I'm gonna decline to answer and redirect you to rewinding on the stream. My apologies. All right, fantastic. Will Maui also be supported for Linux? No. There is a community group that's building it, but it's not quite there yet. But they expect to get something available for late 2021, early 2022. But there is a community project started on that. All right, I think that's a stream. Fantastic. Coming up next time, we're going to get into some advanced C# topics. This will be my last stream of the cycle, because we're going to get back into beginner content. Switch microphones there, Fritz. Come on. We're going to get back into beginner content in August. Next time, we're going to talk about analyzers, code fixers, writing code that looks at your code and fixes your code, gives you build errors, gives you feedback on the code that you've written. It's a bit of an advanced topic. We're going to get into it, and we're going to write our first analyzers we're going to write code to make our code better. Thank you so much for tuning in. Everybody that's out there on Learn TV, hope you have a great day. Tune in. There's going to be a lot more content on Learn TV. If you're watching over on YouTube, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you check out the links in the video, just below in the description, and check out all the videos in the series in the C# with CSharpFritz playlist on YouTube. And those of you that are watching on Twitch, it's time for a raid. Let's raid another streamer over on Twitch. I'm going to check out and see who else is streaming on the big Twitch TV network. And we're going to set up that raid, get you connected with another tech streamer out here. Taking a look. Come on. Show me somebody who's out here. You know what? I'm going to connect you with Lana Lux. Let's do it. Let's go see Lana over on Twitch. Thank you so much. Spell it right. There we go. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow over on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/csharpfritz. We'll be building more with Blazor. We'll be talking about Azure services, optimizing tuning for performance, and more. I'll be talking about Maui in August over on that channel as we get ready to build a native application for my project called ClipTalk. All right, friends, get ready to say hi to Lana, and I will see you tomorrow. Take care.